Okay, so the video definitely shows that we got the area cleaned up, but there are many other things that we accomplished also. So let's cover those, and we're going to take them in sections here. So the next few videos will break this up into components or various areas that were affected by this project. So you remember our value stream maps, and you remember the Kaizens down on the right-hand side of the value stream maps, or those themed action items, the themed improvements that we were going to work on throughout the event. Well, before we get into that, what we had to do is we had to step back and take some action around some of the data we collected. So first of all, we found 6,000 square feet of space with stuff on the floor, with materials on the floor in the loading dock. We found another 2,000 square feet in front of the scheduler's office, and we found another 12,190 square feet of inactive material. That's material sitting on the floor throughout the warehouse that had not moved in at least 30 days, much of it 6 months. So we also found during that time that the big warehouse back behind the loading dock had 40,000 square feet of empty racking space. So the first thing we needed to do before we did any of our improvement projects was get everything off the floor so that we could begin to try some of these experiments we wanted to try. So we got all of that material back into the warehouse in locations. We freed up all the space between the racks. We freed up the loading dock, the space over in front of the scheduler's office, all the 12,190 square feet of stuff throughout the warehouse. And so we had a lot of extra space all of a sudden. But there were things that created that space, and we learned that very quickly. The stuff that was sitting there for a reason. So a lot of the long-term material was because we had run out of other space on the floor throughout the warehouse to put that material, and it was too big to go on a rack. So even though we had 40,000 square feet of racking empty in the warehouse, a lot of this stuff sitting in the loading dock was there simply because of its size. But we had another 9 pallets of a product showing up that day, and that product we didn't realize, but we walked through the warehouse just to discover it, had 53 other pallets throughout the warehouse of that material already here. So we're getting 9 pallets, we already have 53, and the client isn't using any. So we figured out that we really only needed 4 pallets there to meet the customer demand at any particular moment, so we could get rid of almost all of that material and freed up a lot of the floor space that we needed to free up so that we could take that long-term material and get it in the area that we needed to get it to, right? Not out in our loading dock. And we found lots of other material once we discovered that followed that same routine. It was there in way too big a quantity, and we were able to reduce that quantity significantly. So that was just one of the little sub-projects that helped us free up the space that we needed to do the other projects we needed to do. So what the picking crew wanted to do, once we got everything off the floor and back into the warehouse, what they wanted to try is team picking. And team picking was different than what we were currently doing in that the current process had a work order. You'd have 3-4 people assigned to that work order. Each of them would go get a forklift. They would go out through the warehouse to find their parts on the work order. And of course, the aisles all had stuff in it, so they'd have to move the stuff out of the aisles, go down, go up, get their part, come down, come out, put the stuff back in the aisle, go around to the staging area. Staging area was full of material, find some empty spot to stick that pallet, and then the next pallet for that truck would go somewhere else, wherever you could find an empty spot. And each of the pick crews were doing this. The team process was going to be much different. Once all the materials were put away, which they were, and the space was freed up, which it is, then they were able to have one guy come right down the aisle on a forklift, go up, get the parts they needed, come down, hand it to the guy who was standing right there with the cart. That guy would barcode it until the cart was filled. Then the next guy would take the cart around over to the staging area. A new cart was right there. The picking continued, so it never stopped. It kept going all the time. And the guy who brought it over to the staging area would set it there, go get a new cart, bring it back. They just kept the process rotating. So that process in itself saved the pick crew 5.5 hours a day. All right? Absolutely fantastic process, but just one of many of the processes that these folks addressed during this project. We'll cover next what happened with the delivery crew.